Hey guys, welcome to part one of modeling and shading a bathroom in Blender. So to start off, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be making the floor and the cabinet kind of like things. So to start off with that, we're just going to delete the default cube and add a plane and scale it up maybe about there. So now that we have our plane, what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to go into cycles. Because cycles is more realistic, obviously, just so we can see what it looks like. So now what we're going to want to do is go into a shader editor, go to that basic material. I'm just going to close this off. And what we're going to want to do is we're going to want to add a Voronoi texture and connect the color to the base color. So right away you'll see this, but we don't want that. So now what we're going to do is we're going to add in a color ramp, and this will give us the colors we want. And I'm going to turn the scale up to about 1,000, something around there. So now you can see we kind of get these little flakes. We don't want too many, but we don't want a whole bunch. So I'm just going to switch to my GPU real quick so the cycles renders a bit faster. So now we have our basic floor material. And because even if we crank up the roughness all the way, once we get further in, it's not going to look that great still. So what we're going to do is we're going to move this up, add in another color ramp into the roughness of the floor, and we're going to move the white all the way down. Don't pass the black, but just leave it there. Next, we're going to want to add a mix RGB over here to get our kind of like floor or tile. So I'm actually just going to add in a brick texture and plug this in right here above it, and we're going to want to move this up just a little bit. So now we're going to want to go to 2.5 or 0.25 for our bricks. You might want to go a little bigger than that, maybe 0.5 just for this because that's a little small. So now we got our kind of like tiles. We're going to want to change the frequency to 1 up here, and the offset, we're going to want to align this. So now what we can do is we can make our mortar size a bit smaller. So you can let me see 0.05. So now we got kind of like this style, and you can mess with the factor. If you want, you can even add a color ramp just to get more of that. So you can see if you move more to the right, you get the burst color, and then over here. So we're gonna want to put it at 0.95. And that looks about good for right now. Now to get that kind of bumpiness that you would have on a rock tile floor, we're gonna add a noise texture and a bump node to get that bump. And we're gonna plug the bump into the normal, invert this, and then we're gonna want to add a mix, not a mix shader, but a mix RGB. And you're gonna want to leave a factor somewhere in the middle. Plug this in the height, plug the color into the color, and if we move this over all the way, you can see we barely get any bumpiness. Maybe if we go into shader view, you can't really see any bumpiness. So what we're gonna do is crank this up to 16, turn up the roughness all the way, and change this to something like 100. So now you can see we're getting a little bit more bumpiness. I think that's about what we need. So you can mess with the distortion a little bit if you want to kind of get these patterns. So I'm going to put it at 2. These won't really be noticeable during the render, but that's okay. So next what we're going to do is plug the color or the FAC into the mix RGB down here. And then wait a sec. And the reason why we put invert is so we can get those kind of like little dips into the ground. So now we have our floor. You can mess around with the tile sizes, the shading. I'm just going to rename this to floor. Now what we're going to want to do is make this a bit smaller. We're going to add it a cube, and we're going to go GY. and then SZGY again, or GZ, to raise this up a little bit off the floor to get that kind of like no it's not touching the ground. We don't want it to touch the ground, so it looks a bit nicer. We're gonna go into top view, GY, and scale it up on the x-axis until it's about right there. So now what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna tap into edit mode and just bring this up a little bit. Bring this up on the z-axis. So now we got that kind of like cabinet looking thing. And what we're gonna do now is we're gonna open back up the shader editor, and we kind of want this like fake wood. So what we're gonna do is we are gonna decrease the roughness a bit, increase the specular and the specular tint to something of your liking, and let's go back so it doesn't quite look how we want it to look. So let's turn up the metallic actually. Let's actually go to our light, and just for now I'm gonna exit delete it, and I'm gonna add an HDRI real quick. So I'll leave a link in the description where you can get these HDRIs. They do provide better lighting at the cost of some performance. So that looks about good for right now. You can use a color ramp for the roughness. I'm just gonna turn these up a bit, mess with these settings to kind of get what you would want. So now that we have this, we're gonna want to tab into edit mode. You actually can use the brick texture to do this, to make the kind of like divots, the way the cabinet will go in. But just for the sake of this, I'm just gonna do E to go back in. This won't look that great, but it'll look fine just for what we're doing. You can make these cabinets different sizes. I'm just gonna select this and extrude it back in. So now if we tab back out of edit mode, you can't really see this because we don't have shadows, and the lighting over here is overall pretty bright. So we can actually just delete these faces if you would like to not get that little looking thing. It's kind of hard to get rid of. You can do that with a bit of tweaking, but I don't really feel like messing with it right now. So we're just gonna leave it like that for right now. And next what we're gonna do is add the wall behind the kind of counter. So we're gonna just duplicate this. Let's go into side view, duplicate, and we're gonna rotate it to about as close to 90 degrees as we can. That's almost 90 degrees exactly, so we'll just leave it at this. So what we're gonna do now is SZ crunch down on the z-axis. You might want to actually right now, that looks about good. And really what we're gonna do here is we're going to kind of get rid of this. We're gonna duplicate the floor, and we're gonna name this like splash, whatever it's called. I'm not a decorator or interior decorator or anything, but what we're gonna do is we can since this is duplicated, we can get rid of stuff like the Voronoi texture, and we can just plug the color straight into here. So you gotta give it a little bit to kind of line up, and we'll just leave the noise texture right here, and you can mess with these colors to kind of get what you want. So I'm actually just gonna get rid of the brick texture, make this a bit darker. For this back part, we're gonna want a more refined back, so you might want to turn this up to like 200, or maybe even 400. So this is very refined, very refined. And what we're going to do now is we are going to um, do the kind of like faucets. So the faucets are going to be kind of like square. They're going to be like sticking out of the backsplash, whatever it's called. And that's what it's going to be like. So to just do this real quick, I'm going to tab into edit mode and raise this up. So when you do go into the lighting, you kind of have a reason why it looks like this. This will need some tweaking eventually, but we're just going to leave it like this. So now what we can do is add in a cube. And sorry, my it's starting to lag now, so I'm just gonna scale this down and move this up like right here. I can't see it because it is a plane. And scale this down a little bit. DY. And let's just move this over to this side. We're gonna want to make two sinks. So we're gonna tab into edit mode, and we're gonna want to go in face select and GY to move this face out. And I'm just gonna make it very simple. I will eventually do this, like fix it, make it look a bit nicer, but for now I'm just gonna make this and I'm gonna bring this out. So this is actually quite big in my opinion, so I'm just gonna GZ move this up. I will scale this up a little bit so we kind of have a little bit more, and I'm gonna just reposition this, maybe scale it down a little bit. So now that we have this, we can go and we can shade this real quick so we kind of have the faucet. I'm gonna make the shader editor bigger, go into preview mode, and I'm just gonna rename this. So we have floor. This material will be our cabinet, something like that, and this material will be our this is just gonna be our faucet. So we're just gonna put faucet for this. And what we're gonna want to do, obviously, for this, we're gonna want to turn up or decrease the roughness, turn up the metallic. That doesn't look too great right now, so what I'm gonna do is increase the roughness just a little bit, so it's not entirely see-through, something like that. So now what we can do and is we can duplicate this, move it on the x-axis about over here, and there we go. We can go close this tab by right clicking in the middle, join areas, and we can go into the camera view and just align the view we want to get real quick so we don't have to mess with any of these settings later on. So I'm just going to click camera to view, and you can mess with these camera settings. I really wouldn't recommend it, not at this point, and line it up to you have something that you'll want. So this looks about good for right now, and we can untick this and you can render this image really quickly. And this was rendered at 128 samples without a denoiser, and it looks pretty good for right now. In the next video I will be going over some tweaking of the parts and adding the shower area. But that's it for today's video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.